Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. To live a long life here on planet Earth, there's a price to pay. Now, there actually are many prices to pay. But one price that I'd like to highlight in today's episode is experiencing and moving through grief. So recently, me and my family, we experienced the loss of one of our, who we consider a family member, our pet parakeet. Her name was Luna. She was an albino bird with like red eyes. It was like the most interesting, beautiful, awesome bird that I've got to know and had in the house. I actually found her in like in an adjacent neighborhood here in DC at a Petco, and I remember I went to a section where they had a lot of their birds, exotic birds and whatnot, cockatiels and things like that. And I went to the sections with parakeet, where all the parakeets were, and there was a bunch of them in this big tank. And I remember seeing Luna. Like, I'm like, wow, like here's like this white bird amidst all the other colorful birds, and I'm like, you know what? I want to actually, like it was from that moment on when I saw her, and I think we had made eye contact when I had remember getting her back in like 2017. And I remember I knew from that moment that there was something special about this bird. So, and I was like, I want to have you part of our family, you know. And so she'd been with us for like 8 years, you know, and it's just crazy because when I think about all that time when I initially got her, I'm still in the process of trying to rummage through paperwork to know exactly when can I, because I have that paperwork of when the documentation when I got her at Petco. Still trying to find that, but more or less looking at it from the year span, one of the things that came up when I was just thinking about all this, moving through this process for myself, I recognized that when I had gotten her, that was around the time when I was exploring on my spiritual path, when really wanted more out of life, when I felt like there was a bigger picture that really I wasn't getting from people, you know, that I've known, that led on my search. And through my own years of like spiritual development, from going to retreats to taking courses and even having my fair share of co-instructing lectures and programs to help people connect with their selves, with their energy, with their purpose, giving people a bigger picture of life so that they can play the game much better for themselves. And so to me, that's very symbolic to me, especially because, looking at Luna as an albino parakeet, in some sense, I see her as like, the image of the dove comes to mind. And, when I think about the dove, I think about spirit, I think about spirit guides, particularly my spirit guides. And, when I discovered, my team a while ago, that was really an awesome, new, fresh experience that really felt real, And to think that we all have guides with us at all times as well who are truly involved, more involved than you think. And I'd bet money on that too. That's how real I know it is. And so Luna has been around through the formation of for myself all those years, as a, doing the inner work, going out, living my life, learning a lot of things. You know, she was around when I started this podcast. She was around when I went to my first real vacation at work, where I got to unwind and work on myself and connect with like-minded people in Kauai back in 2019. She was there when I was going through my own life changes physically, when I was going through some tough times in my life, at least one of many tough times in my life. She was there for a lot of it. And, I think I'm trying to figure out where I wanted to go with here, but I wanted to share kind of a bit of the story of like what had happened, and you know, without getting into the nitty gritty details and all. I mean, I think honestly, getting the sense, I think this is more like what ended up happening, because she was going through some health complications, and one of the symptoms, or what really warranted a visit to the doctor, was when she fell. She fell in her cage, and then she was walking on a limp. Like there was something going on with her right talon, the rear one, and she wouldn't properly open it up to keep herself balanced. And that was a red flag for us, when, at least when my sister noticed it. And it was through taking her to the local, at least the closest clinic that looks at exotic animals, did some scans and whatnot, and they found that there were some health complications going on that really made things difficult. And they tried some therapy options, and then eventually got to a point where my sister had got that call back telling her that the only humane thing we could do at this point for her was to put her to sleep. And I remember when she told me that the night before, I couldn't believe it. The whole experience was very, very surreal. Still kind of feels surreal right now. And I remember my sister had asked me, you think you can come with me tomorrow to the clinic? And then I was like, no, I don't think I can. I can't because of work. I work on the weekends, or at least I work on Saturdays. And then I just kind of went away to my room, but kind of hovered for a bit, and I thought about it. And I remember when she had told me that initially, and when I gave her that response, my intuitive part inside me, there was a feeling that, to me, I would interpret like, incorrect, meaning that I knew that wasn't the that didn't felt right. So then I had made the decision that there uh, I shifted that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. I messaged my colleagues, told them about, briefly told them I won't be available, family emergency. Then I ended up going with my sister, you know, with her friend as well. And so, because he had a car, and he gave us a ride because it was pretty far away in Virginia. And so we went over there, and then we had a chance to, wait for a bit. And then we had some, they put us in the room where we had time to spend with Luna, because she had spent a couple nights beforehand, and so like we were really in our this process of getting worried and whatnot. She was over there at the animal clinic, or I guess it's a hospital. I don't know what to properly classify it, but and so we were there, and then I had asked, my friend, and the people, the people there gave us some space, and I had asked my sister's friend to give us some space. So it was just me, her, and Luna. And when it comes to like relationships, at least with Luna was much more closer to my sister. Although she, she was comfortable around me, and one night we had a good relationship. But I'm an idiot sometimes, and I would kind of mess around with her, kind of like put my finger close to her, or basically get in her space. And she's the type of bird that was like very sassy and very like, especially when she's in her cage, she will not play around. And I've gotten my ass bit, and she drew blood and all the things, and which I had it coming to me. I will admit that. It's like that saying, "Fuck around and find out" type of situation. But my sister was very much closer to her, you know. And then that was part of my decision when I thought about, like, how being there to support my sister at this time. Um, it's something that does not happen. This is not an everyday occurrence. It's a major life event, you know. And I'll say this too. It's amazing how, for me, how I can experience some kind of life event and I get so caught up about work or whatever. Like one example, just to kind of bring it up in perspective. When I got hit by a car last month, when I was riding my bike to get to a training, um, late Friday afternoon, I remember like the moment when I was down. Thankfully, I was still conscious. I I was still thinking. I was like thinking to myself, "Damn, I'm gonna miss the training," without any consideration. Like, "Oh shit, am I?" Like, I mean, I did give consideration at some point, right? But it was just interesting, like the initial worry and concern, like, "Damn, I'm gonna miss the training," whatever, the thing that I was going for to begin with, that had to go through a change of plan. And I want to bring that up because it's just very important to just remember that with all this stuff, especially with work, is that they're just a means to an end. And that, for me, that was a moment when I get myself so caught up in that and I start looking at this job as an end of itself. When it's just something I'm doing for a period of time for however long, depending on various factors, right? So, bringing it back. So that was something that, when my sister had asked me, I was like, you know what, I gotta go, man. I gotta get over this. Why am I so hung up about work and whatnot when the work is always gonna be there, bruv? It's always gonna be there. It's always gonna be there. So anyway, back at the clinic when it was just I'm gonna be going back and forth, so forgive me for this interesting time travel of a storytelling. So then we were back at the clinic, and it was just us two and then Luna, and they had her put inside a container, and they had put like a tube connected to the container for to give her oxygen, because one of the things that they found was like she had some trouble with breathing. That was a symptom of her health complications. But when it was just us, for me, I had this strong feeling, much like, again, that strong feeling when my sister had asked me, and I had to tell her no initially, but then I was like, there is no damn way am I gonna just say my final goodbyes to Luna in this box, in this container, without giving her that touch to communicate love in that way. Even the doctor was like, keep the container closed. And when it was just me, my sister, and Luna, I opened that damn container. I was like, ain't no hell way you're gonna tell me I can't touch, my beloved Luna. And so when I took her out of the container, she was actually doing fine in terms of her breathing was actually better. And so we were taking turns holding her, even took some pictures. And we could see that, one of the things I did notice that she looked very tired. Part of it too because she had to go through like a lot of, you know, she had to take some meds and like she had to go under anesthesia for her to receive the scan so that we can get more insights into what's going on with her. The what did they? My sister said the prognosis, to get the prognosis, what's going on with her. And so we were to spend some time with her, going back and forth, and I was just bawling my eyes. But the moment, shoot, I remember like the moment stepping inside the room, right? I think between me and my sister, I feel like I might have been the one that was crying the most. Like I said, even though my sister was much more closer to Luna than I was, and one who spent more time with than I did. And even looking at this whole situation as a whole, I didn't realize how much this would actually hit me in the way that it did. Which in some ways I find it interesting. So I was out there just bawling my eyes and just telling all these things, that even apologizing for some of the stuff I did. I know that was just like not cool. And just giving her like a love feast and telling her how I truly felt about her and how she was loving, kind, and smart, really cool bird. She was very chatty. One of the she had a couple of phrases she would say. A couple of them were she'll say "Thank you, Luna," "Thank you, Luna," or she'll say "Besito," 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 and she'll chirp and she'll do her little chirps, which if you don't know, "Besito" means little kisses. And we actually, when we spent that time, because my sister had to fill out some paperwork and they were giving us the direction, like there was a whole thing that had to go through with the decision having to be a part of it for my sister. um, we in all that time it was just the three of us. I'm glad that there was a point where we saw her perk up a bit, you know and she did chirp a little bit when she was there, when we had her. But I noticed that she was still limping, and I think one of the things that's tough when it comes to seeing like loved ones suffer, it's like seeing them in a state that's very, very weak. And I think for me, it's hard to see someone in that state of weakness. Um, because it's not easy. It's not something that like I want to see people thriving and healthy and good and brightful and cheerful. And when when I saw she still had that limp and she wasn't calling on my sister's shoulder the way she did before, something else that really hit me deep as well was that for the most part she was really quiet. Like I said, she's a very chatty bird. She was very chatty, especially like when my sister or I would come by or we would talk. She would always just chirp and respond a lot. Like it's just, but she was very quiet. She wasn't how I saw it. She wasn't as expressive. And I think that's what's something that hit me pretty hard. When she wasn't as expressive and full of life, I think about those times when my fears and worries gets the best of me. When I hold myself back. When I suppress myself because of these worries, these conditionings, all this bullshit. That's part of the journey. As I'm sharing all this, that's a lot of why this has hit me a lot deeper. Because I can see a reflection in myself in all of this. And how I saw Luna in those instances gives some reflection of how I see myself and the frustration I have in my own challenges. And, so we had our time to to kind of say our final goodbyes. We were giving her kisses. Mind you, me and my sister were like developing a cold and whatnot. But because it was just us, thankfully we were just like, I want to take the mask off for a bit. No one's around. Because like I said, we weren't gonna try to let all these things, these excuses, the way I see it, to just not connect. And for me, I don't know if touch is my love language necessarily, but it is definitely something that I resonate with, and how I communicate with people and how I share and give of myself is that physical touch. That contact is so important to me. It's so important to me. And so my sister and I made the decision to be there when they had to put her down and witness it in real time, which I know it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy for everybody. But I know for myself, I needed to do it. And I remember before, like, they had given her anesthesia, and that made her sleepy. And then they were gonna go ahead and just this is where it's gonna get a little bit graphic here. Or feel free to kind of skip this section here, or if you want to continue listening. Um, but I mean, I'm not gonna get too graphic, but it is gonna get in a little bit more details here. But they had to, like, basically put her to sleep with anesthesia, and then after that, they would have to inject the whatever that they used to enter her heart to basically stop her heartbeat in the process of to put her down. And and that's kind of experiencing all that's part of the surrealness of all this. And well, thankfully though, in that experience though, like after, like, they were taking out the process, we said our goodbyes. The doctor came in. They held her gently. They put her down, like, to do the whole process. She ended up passing away because she was still awake after they had gave her the anesthesia. She was still kind of she was still moving, and so they gave her some more, and it was through the extra dosage of anesthesia that she finally checked out. She passed on, you know. And the part that hits me, again, there were various parts that was hitting me, but the fact that with the anesthesia that they gave her, and just seeing her still awake for like 10 minutes, because they were saying that between 5 and 10 minutes the medicine should kick in and she should be asleep. But the fact that she was still awake, because it was well over 10 minutes and she was still awake, to me it was like she's still up, she's still kicking. And there was a part of me that wonders, like, could we have done something differently? I'm all about holistic, and I'm a firm believer in, like, holistic medicine. And in an ideal world, I think if Western and Eastern medicine and, like, all the modalities work together, we can do tremendous things. In my opinion, what I believe. But just seeing her still, like, kicking and still moving, even after the anesthesia, like, that part even still hit me even harder. Because I understand things can happen in life. Like I said, I've gone through a lot, but something that I've always had a burning desire, and you, and this is something that comes to, like, our heart chakra, our drive, our incentive, the part that doesn't give up, you know. And when I saw Luna just still awake, to me I was like, man, you know, she's still here. Part of me is like, maybe she still wants to be here with us. Maybe we can still do something. It's like in those, I was having these little thoughts in that moment. They were very quick, but I knew that we already made a decision. At that point, especially because with the complications that she had going on, I even rechecked with my guides as well too. They were in agreement that it was the best decision to have been made. Because I'm all up, because it's tough, because I definitely want, I'm the type of person who will try to exhaust all options, as I'm sure anybody would for their loved ones. Exhaust all possible options to see if we can turn it around. And I think that's a beautiful quality, and I think that's why we all have that resilience and that persistence and that I mean, yeah, the persistence and not giving up, determination. I was just like how my sister was willing to go above and beyond to go through and spend for all those like the scans and all the stuff that was pretty pricey. But my sister was willing to do whatever necessary, just for any ounce of hope, right? Do everything for him, even if it's just like a 1% chance, right? Just I'm gonna do it anyway, even if there's just a 1% chance or 0.01% chance. And that's part of why it was really hard. Because sometimes I feel like, could we have done something differently? Could we have done something differently for Luna so she could have still been here? Could we have helped her with her situation? But just based on, again, just like what I was told, because she had like as far as I know, to kind of give you a little bit into context here, it was she had like a couple things, right? She had like some fluids in her systems that were like backing up, and she had like a mass that we don't know if it was tumorous or not, but it was like basically like a tumor. And and then also she had an egg that got stuck in her body, and that couldn't she couldn't push it out through. And so a lot of it was a mixture of like hormonal challenges. Just to give you some perspective here, now what's done is done at this point in time, right? So I'm just in this process of sharing this story with you. I'm just, part of my intention in all of this is to regroup the experience for myself. So I'm sharing this for you, my friend, for anything that resonates, and I know what I'm getting out of it. So, so we were there the whole time, spending those moments up until that point when they had to use the anesthesia, and then at that point when she had passed on. And I'm just glad for me, you know, that I have followed through on those things that I did. And because of that, with everything that's happened, I don't regret anything. Or at least with the actions that I've taken. And in fact, I'm so glad that I've listened to my gut. I listened to my feelings when I needed to, and then not listening to them and then taking action on them. That was the part that I'm glad I did. Because often for me, I don't know for you, when it comes to working on my intuition, the kicker is always at times is following through on it. Recognizing and being aware is one thing, but then following through is something else. And it's the thing that makes all the difference. What good are impressions and inspirations if there's no follow through? What kind of creator could we be if we didn't follow through on those inspirations, on those downloads that we get from the universe, that we just channel within, that we get from our guides? And so it's definitely been, as far as our place now feels different without her there. And it's a tough thing. It's like, as I mentioned, like, it's to pay that price to live a long life, and I would hope a healthy one at that, for you, my friend, and your loved ones. It's that reality of just everybody's gonna move on at some point. They're gonna pass on, including you and me. And it's amazing to me what human emotions, what part of like the human experience is like human emotions conflicting with the soul's knowing and understanding. Because I know my guidance, my spirit guides see that situation like, I don't know if they feel grief, but I would wager not, because they have a bigger picture. And in fact, they probably saw Luna in spirit form as she passed on, you know? And, when it comes to like that kind of stuff, I always say, well, not always say, I don't always say, because that doesn't, but like, I always felt like, the best thing I could, ask for anyone passing on, you know, is that no matter what happens, to just follow the lights, to go back to go back home to the universe, because the universe is where our true home is. That's something that I've experienced and felt, and it's something that I still stand by and believe. And even though on the surface I lost Luna, the bigger picture perspective, she just simply transitioned and passed on. She's okay. She's rather now in spirit form, moving on to whoever knows where she's gonna go. And so, I'm sure and I would hope that she would go back home to the universe. There's no reason to stay here on Earth, because it's a school. This isn't the end all be all. This is not Planet Earth isn't our true home. And I don't know about you, but I always get that feeling very solid and clear when I've looked up at the night sky when it's clear and I see all those stars out there. Even the moon kind of puts a little sprinkle on top in the whole vastness and the visual. So that big picture perspective, and that's part of why I'm able to just share, at least now at this point. And I'm still gonna work through my own process, of not having her around anymore. Part of the human experience. It is what it is. But I think having that big picture perspective, that we all just pass on and we go through transitions. That's this this experience is one of many reasons why it's important to connect with that big picture, to have that big picture perspective and understand that all that we're experiencing here is not the end all be all, but rather just means to an end. It's all a means to an end. And to keep it in real practical perspective, why I say it's a means to an end is because we don't take it with us. I don't take this physical body. I don't take these identities. Luna didn't take her physical body with her. She just went back in her pure spirit form, much like how we all will at some point. But the point of why we're here is what we've put together for ourselves, the wisdom, the growth, the learning and growing. That's why I emphasize that so much, because it's working on that which we take with us, that we truly take with us. And that's the learning, the growing, the wisdom we've unfolded, the more freer that we've felt, the more freedom we've tapped into and unlocked within ourselves. The mastery that we've gained, the self mastery, all that we take with us. And that's why I give a damn about the spiritual. It's about prioritizing what I take with me and not get so caught up in the stuff here. That isn't to say don't enjoy what we have here. Let me make this perfectly clear here. Enjoy the things you have here. That's why they're there. But just remember your big picture and don't lose sight of that. And just remember, this is all a means to an end. Temporary, and it will not come with us. Right? Not even like if you have a partner, your partner won't, I'll preface this. I mean, if you're someone that values longevity and like lifelong partner and stuff, I wish that for you. But understand that even in that context, our partner, I'm gonna say our, because I don't want to feel like I'm singling you out here. I'm not. This is like for anybody this applies to. It's like our. I'll just say I'll speak it in the eye. Keep it like that. Like my partner won't. I'm single, but I'm gonna use an example here. um, I'm not. My partner's not gonna jump with me in the coffin when it's time to go. And so one of the things I want to bring here as a very focal, very essential part here, and that is one of my core values and what I see as a spiritual key when it comes to life on earth or even as a whole, is that you and I are free. We are so free, that no one is bound to anybody. Any idea of bondage are just because of human labels and concepts. But out there in the universe, we're all free. It's like that feeling of freeness, like that's so vast and deep. It's like imagining being in the middle of the ocean. Like, say you're a good swimmer, but you're plopped in the middle of the ocean and you have all that space to just go. No one's stopping you. Now, talking about it sounds easy, but when it comes to experiencing it, for me, it's hard. It's scary at times. I remember my mentor even tell me that we can't consciously comprehend how truly free we are. But I think that's part of the journey of us working towards, while working in the finiteness of this material world, to unfold the limitlessness of the soul, of the spirit. Because I think part of why we're here is to outgrow limitations, and I think that goes hand in hand. They're connected. That's what I know my helpers did, and I'm sure that's what your helpers did as well too, and what they're trying to back and assist you in your journey. And when I mentioned the whole, you can't take your partner with you, when you pass on, right? They don't jump in the coffin with you. Going back to the freedom piece, that's when I was thinking about Luna. The One of the things I learned from, at a certain point that I felt like applied in this experience is that at times I think one of the greatest act of love, true love, you can give to somebody is to simply let them go. To let them go. Because we're free, autonomous souls. Like, as a spirit, we have been, we are, we always will be. We'll always be here. Luna and all other people that I've known, I know they're out there. They haven't disappeared. Nobody disappears out of existence. We live on. And even just looking at like your story never started this lifetime. Your story has been a continuation of many lifetimes. That's how much depth you have. That's how much depth I've known since within myself. Have you ever considered that for a moment? Or even perhaps tuned into yourself? One of the ways you can try that, a little something I want to share, a little gift here. Just like take your hands and put them an inch apart, palms facing towards each other. And I would invite you to close your eyes and just to, or actually, before doing that, to rub your hands, first, or even shake them, and then bring them close to you. Bring your hands close to each other, 1 inch apart, palms facing inwards towards each other, and just notice what you feel. And I invite you to play around with that technique and feel it, because That technique is called feeling my energy technique. It's one of the staple techniques that we have in our program at the Waitrose College. That's, to me, I see a lot of value because it helps connect back to my feelings. Because I know for me, I can have a lot of theories and ideas about X, Y, and Z, but it's my feelings. It's what's important. It's having the feeling for it. What's the feeling? So like it's one thing to think oneness. It's another thing completely to feel oneness. And this goes beyond emotions. This is something, this is a feeling, right? Like, to give it in perspective here, right? Imagine like not the best example, but just a feeling, right? Let's say if someone were to like to step on your foot and you would feel that discomfort, right? It's just discomfort, but that feeling. So it's like that feeling within you of home out there in the universe. If you've experienced it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I invite you, the technique that I just shared earlier of feeling my energy, and take some time to practice just a couple minutes a day or whenever you need to, just to tune into your own energy. That's the purpose of that technique, is that you can, it's a form of cleansing, so you can tune into your own energy. You tune into your own energy, and you cleanse yourself all the outer stuff, because it's an important thing when it comes to navigating life and self mastery, is letting go of what's me and coming back to what is me. The soul within you. You are the soul. We are souls with a physical body, not a physical body with a soul. The difference is one has a bigger picture, the other one has, it's very limiting. And so from that big picture perspective, that we're souls having these human experiences, and though the human experiences are, there are unpleasant ones, make no mistake, but they happen, you know? And I think that's part of why we're here, to experience the bittersweet of life. But that shouldn't have to take away the fact that life is great. Because we're faced with it, whether we like it or not. But we have a choice. So why not choose to see how much of a blessing life is, instead of focusing on those tiny, micro, often exaggerated bad things that happens in our lives. From that bigger picture perspective, I remember one of the things that I have been cultivating it, really connecting from a feeling level of what that feels like. Not just some idea that no matter what, everything's going to be all right. The storm will pass. Life goes on. And it's working with my emotions and working with myself when the storm comes through. That's part of the dance of life. That's part of a practice. I appreciate, being involved with the college, because they gave me some tools, knowledge, and things that I had to like practice and embody, that have put me in this place that I feel a lot more secure. I'm not talking perfection, just more developed in my own journey. Again, this is not about greater or lesser. Everybody's got their own pace. Everybody's going at their own timing. This cannot be overstated, but in fact must be a reminder. And even then too, like when on the topic of like everything's gonna be all right. That's one of the things when I've come to learn about. Because I used to think that with heaven and hell, I thought if I did bad stuff or whatever, that I would just end up in hell. But really, heaven is something that we choose, and it starts with where we are right now. And when we do that for ourselves now, it'll be easier in the transition to find our way back home when we pass on. And that's why I believe it's important to witness and embody the kingdom of heaven that Jesus was talking about. The kingdom of heaven's upon us right here, right now. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's not missing. It's not in some faraway place that I need some kind of key to access. I want you to place, if you would indulge, I want you to place your hand, left or your right hand, on your heart. That's where heaven is. And we can tune in anytime we want. And so, life will keep on lifing. There will come the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs, all the things, the bittersweetness. That is what makes this school a very powerful and a wonderful school for our own spiritual evolution. But no matter what happens in life, no matter what life may throw at you, may it bring you closer to your guidance, your spiritual helpers, those that have a big picture and understand everything. Or at least they have that big picture understanding. May it bring you closer to yourself. So in those tough times, and even if you're turning to those friends, loved ones to help back you, to support you. But be there for yourself. Be there for yourself. Because you have your relationship with yourself. And that's the most important relationship that needs to be worked on, in my opinion. And it's important when it's approached with balance. And again, no matter what happens in life, ultimately, may it bring you closer back home. This has been another episode of Spirit Engineered. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.